Everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Crager, the Flip Flop Flipper. Guys, we are value-add real estate investors, and we share with you what we do, how we do it in real time. We are investing on the island of Puerto Rico in value-add real estate and in the state of Florida. Everything we do is value-add, and we like to tell you guys what we do, why we do it, encourage you guys to do it. We want you guys to be a part of this. It's a great life, becoming a real estate investor. That's why you subscribe to the channel. Give this video a like on the way in. Today we're talking about investing in apartment buildings and why you should consider it. What are the good things about it? What are the tough things about it? And so what we talk about is real life examples, things that you can do as a real estate investor who's just starting out, things that will give you the lifestyle that you want, the passive income down the road, the appreciation along the way, and you really own it. You really get to have the value of it. So that's where we're at. I encourage entrepreneurship, and I encourage people to become real estate investors. Now, why do I do that? Because we're a small business. We're encouraging other people to be small business owners. We're encouraging people to step outside of a broken system and take control of their lives and get themselves some freedom. And that's what we like to do. That's why we do this real estate channel. That's why we do this YouTube channel. Let's talk about the pros and cons of investing in apartment buildings. I want to tell you that investing in apartment buildings can be extremely lucrative. It comes with its own set of risks, and we're going to go through what's good and what's bad. And I'm also going to say that when I'm talking about apartment buildings, I'm telling you from real life experience. So the largest apartment building that I've ever been a part of, that we've ever owned, was like a 63-door apartment building that we had in Central Florida over in Titusville, and we bought it through a foreclosure sale. We had partnered with some people who had some money. I gave them control of this. This is a con, I think, for investing in apartment buildings, or can be a con for investing in apartment buildings, and this is just my real life experience. In this case, I gave a group of investors the control. I found the deal. I was responsible to do the renovation and get the place renovated, and they were to bring in the money. But it was a pretty substantial amount of money. It was one of the biggest deals we'd ever done at the time. And so we gave this group that we had invested with on, I would think, dozens of deals, and we had made lots and lots of money together. And every time that we had invested with them before, we had the decision-making control. We had the control of how the dollars would be spent, who we would rent it to, what we would sell it for, all of the things, right? In this case, even though we were responsible for a section of it, we gave the control of the overall project to this group of investors. And I say that because it didn't go well for us. We ended up doing the full renovation on 63 units. We had a year's worth of time and effort into this property, and this group freaked out and decided that they didn't want to be in this investment anymore, and they ended up selling the property at a massive loss. And I was against it at the time. I tried to have many meetings with this group and say, hey, this is the wrong play. We're about to enter into a cycle in this real estate where everything's going to go up. But they were terrified. It took a little bit longer to renovate than it was anticipated. It cost us a little bit more money because of that. And it was significantly harder to rent things. Back, this is like 12. So it was harder to rent things. This was in a part of Titusville. It was not a super affluent area. This was working class. Man, when I look back on that deal right now and I think about the could have beens, like had we just stayed the fight instead of selling it and losing, I think we lost $700,000 on this deal. Instead of losing that money, we would have had the cash flow along the way, and we would now have something that was worth probably tens of millions of dollars, like over $1 million in revenue. But it would have taken us a longer period of time, right? Like, so that wouldn't have happened overnight, but that's what it would be today. I think that property, I've driven by it several times. I own some other real estate around it. We bought it. We were in it for an incredibly good price per door, and even with the renovation, we were in these units for like less $50,000 per door. I say all of that because I'm telling you that I'm not Grant Cardone. I'm not an expert of all experts in this space, but we do have some experience in it. Most of the time it's success, right? So that is a real life example of something that didn't go our way. We gave up the control to someone else. They freaked out, they sold it, we lost a bunch of money, it hurt really bad. However, had we not freaked out, panicked, sold, would be worth a ton of money today. So look, if you're in the real estate game, you do this long enough, you're gonna have some things that don't go your way. Enough about that. Let's move on to today, real life, right now. We invest in apartment buildings today, but most of the time we're investing in stuff where we're calling an apartment building 5 units up to our biggest one on the island of Puerto Rico right now is a 12-unit building, right? So that 5 to 12 units, that's what I've got experience with. I can tell you that we invest in those as often as they come to us and are a good deal, and they provide great cash flow. We're going to go through how we do that, what are the pros, what are the cons, and hopefully you guys are going to get a whole bunch of great information out of this. Maybe you can find an apartment building to invest in and you need someone who's experienced to come in and help you with that, to come in and possibly do renovations, or maybe you need a portion of the money. Who knows? Through this YouTube channel, we're wanting to do deals together. That's why we do this. So if you've got the deal of a lifetime, if you've got something somewhere in Puerto Rico or somewhere in Florida or even somewhere else in the USA, open to hearing about great deals and partnering with people through this YouTube channel, whether you bring a great deal to the table or we bring a deal and you come in alongside of us, that's what we're here to do, guys. All right, so what are the pros and cons of investing in apartment buildings? When you're investing in apartment buildings, the first thing that you're gonna take into account that can be a little bit of a negative is the management responsibility. So when you're thinking about my story that I just told, where we lost control of the management, we lost control of the decision making, that was a major con to that investment. And in fact, it sunk the deal. Gave up the control to someone else who panicked and then they sold. In my determination, was a bad decision. I think we should have stayed and had the fight, gone forward with it, kept the project, and if we had, everybody would have made a whole ton of money. But management responsibilities are something that you need to be thinking about. And that's why I like to talk about this 5 to 12 units, because this is something that anyone who's listening to my voice and watching this video can do, right? These things are not going to be astronomically large, costing millions and millions of dollars. And they're just, quite frankly, out of reach for most of us at this point in our investment career. Even for me, I've been doing this for 26 years. I don't know how I would put together the group to buy a 1,000-unit apartment building. I'd love to have that problem. We'll get there. But I think for you and I, as we're talking about and having this conversation and saying 5 to 12 units, this is something that's attainable. This is something where you guys who are listening to me and watching this video, you can do this. We could do this together even. That's the first one, management responsibilities. It can be a significant undertaking. You've got to think about tenant relationships. You've got to think about maintenance and repairs and the cost of turning them. When somebody leaves one of the units, you've got to go in and quickly fix it back up, get it back on the rental market. So these are things that you need to think about as apartment owners, as landlords. They're not drastically different than if you had single family homes, but it does cause scale, right? So it is possibly more intensive. Vacancy risks, right? So if you have an apartment building, and one of the reasons that my venture into the 63 units, people panicked and it didn't work out so well as the renovation. We started renting and it was going slow, so our cash flow wasn't tremendous. So when we sold it, the next buyer is buying it based on our cash flow, and we were only about 35% occupied at the time, so we didn't get nearly enough. Whereas if we had, even back then, if we had just gotten all of the units rented, we could have sold it a much higher dollar figure. So vacancy risks, they're real. Like if you have 5 to 12 units and one unit is vacant, that's not as bad as having one single family house and having it be vacant. But if you start to get 2 or 3 or 4 things vacant at one time and you've got debt on the property, it can cause problems. So it's just a risk that you guys need to be mindful of. It's not the end of the world. Don't let it scare you from doing it. It's just something to think about. Even though we're talking about these smaller deals, this 5 to 12 units, buying things like this can be capital intensive, right? So you're specifically, if you're like us and you're buying value add stuff, then for instance, on our 12 units, which is here in San Juan, we bought a vacant building. So we had to put out the cash to buy it. We had to put out the cash to renovate it, and then we get no cash flow until after all of that's said and done. So there was probably close to an 18-month runway from purchase until the first renter. We only just recently started these things. We've got about half of the 12 rented. It's nice that we have that cash flow coming in finally, but it was capital intensive, right? Like we had a significant investment in both the purchase and the renovation and no revenues until we got the thing done and are able to start renting it out. So that's something to take into account, right? Again, something you can do. It's something that's manageable. I don't want to scare you off. It's something that you need to be thinking about. Number 4, market risks. So when you're value add real estate investing and you're buying this stuff and you don't have cash flow, you always have to be thinking about, are you getting into the market at the right time or the wrong time? So we're investing in Puerto Rico. We believe that it's the right time to be investing here. In fact, I've said this for a couple of years now. I don't think that there's a better place in the USA to invest in real estate than on the island of Puerto Rico. And I think that that's going to continue now for the next several years. And there are lots of reasons why I say that, but most of it is based on my experience over the last half a dozen years, where we have seen the island make a tremendous comeback. We know that there's a housing shortage. We know that before Maria, people didn't have jobs, and now there's an economy where anybody who wants to work can work. We see wages rising. We see people coming back to the island who left for opportunities. So there's all of this, housing shortage, lots of demand, people making more money, lots of good stuff in the economy where we're buying. So we're not worried too much about the market risks. But take Orlando, Florida, for instance, where we left, which we had been in business there for 20 years before we came to the island of Puerto Rico. It had gotten up to the top. Like, it was more expensive when we left back in 2017 and 2018 than it had ever been. And it's continued to get more and more expensive there. Rents have doubled since we've been on this island. So luckily we had already bought a rental portfolio that we left behind when we came to Puerto Rico to start our business. But buying stuff at that time was way more risky than it was in 2012 when we started buying apartments and started buying a whole bunch of properties to keep as rental properties. So knowing the market and where you're at in the cycle, super, super important. Again, I go back to our personal experiences, what we actually did, right? We identified Puerto Rico as an emerging market and came, and we've kind of been able to ride the economy up and ride the real estate wave up. And it turns out that we are being rewarded for being here early, but it's not too late. If you guys are thinking about coming to Puerto Rico, if you're thinking about investing in Puerto Rico, it's a great time to do that. There's still lots of demand. Things are good. There's also lots of opportunity to buy stuff that's distressed and then fix it up and then put it back to the market. So, all right, guys, so we just went through some of the cons or some of the things that you need to think about. Guys, I don't ever want to be negative. We believe anything is possible, and I'm going to tell you about the benefits of investing in apartments now, why I think you should consider it. So don't be afraid of these things that we call cons, or these things that could be potential problems. They're not meant to discourage people. They're just meant to let you know that there are obstacles, there are things that you need to overcome, there are things that you need to be thinking about and aware of before you jump in. Now let's talk about the benefits. Let's talk about the pros. And the first pro is that if you invest in these small apartment buildings, it can provide you life-changing money, life-changing cash flow. This type of investing, once you stabilize the investment, provides stable income, right? Stabilize the investment equals stable income. So in our case, we typically buy buildings that are distressed, that are vacant, that don't have any cash flow. We then value add invest, force our equity by bringing the property up to its highest and best. So we buy it here as a vacant building, we buy it really well, hopefully we buy it with equity. Then we invest dollars into it to make it the nicest building that it's ever been, and we then rent it. And so along the way, we're forcing the equity through the value add investing, and then we're again gaining more equity once we get it stabilized and rented and bringing in the cash flow. By the way, we don't use debt all that often, especially on the island of Puerto Rico. A couple of reasons for that. We got crushed by debt back in the day, and that's hard to get on the island of Puerto Rico. It's not the case that we're always going to be debt free. On the island of Puerto Rico, as soon as they give us a product where we can pull out some cash, we're going to do it so that we can do the next investment. So one of the beautiful pros of buying these small apartment buildings is the steady income, the passive income. And we call it passive income, even though we know that it's not passive at all, at least not at first. It takes an upfront substantial investment with both time, effort, and money, right? It just is. In order to ever get to passive income, somebody's going to do a whole bunch of work. In this case, as a new real estate investor, very likely you are going to do a whole bunch of work before you get to passive income. Now, there are ways to invest in these apartment buildings on the lending side, or just as kind of the silent partner, the person who puts in the money, and have much closer to passive income. But just remember that passive income means that you get passive income because somebody did a whole shit ton of work. The second way that we find that we like investing in this type of small 5 to 12 unit apartment building is that you get economies of scale. Even though we're doing the small stuff and we're not a Grant Cardone buying 1,000 units, we see significant economies of scale when we buy a 5 to 12 unit apartment building, because we have a bunch of renters that are in one place. We have repairs that can happen that get cheaper, so it costs us less to renovate 5 apartments in one building than 5 single family homes. So I hope that this makes sense to you guys. I'm trying to explain how our mind works, what we're thinking about when we're determining what to do with an investment and why we like to invest in these 5 to 12 units. And we would go bigger. This is just what we've got experience with right now in real time. So economies of scale for maintenance, repairs, management, they can all be spread across the multiple units. And if you had more units, you'd spread them across more units. I think that makes sense. Economies of scale is really great. Number 3, the appreciation potential. So if we can buy real estate at the right price and then do the value add and then get it cash flowing and be making a nice return, and at some point it's passive income, and just hold on to it for a really long period of time, live on the revenues that it throws off. Over time, we get this thing that's magical. It's called appreciation, and it generally happens when you buy good real estate and you get the cash flow. If you're in a good area, it's going to go up. Historically, that's true. So appreciation potential on this type of investing, it's astronomical. It's a beautiful thing. I highly encourage you guys get in this game, right? Like, this is life-changing. This can build significant wealth for you, or even generationally. This is life-changing. We say this often on other content. We believe that by you becoming a real estate investor or you becoming an entrepreneur, not only are you going to lift yourself up, but generally speaking, you're going to lift up others. You're going to lift the employees of your business. You're going to lift up your family members and your friends. They're going to see you doing this stuff and being successful with it. They're going to then ask you, hey, what is it that you're doing? How did you do this? And then you're going to be able to lift them up as well. So that's our thesis. That's what we've seen come true. We say that real estate is a get rich quick. In fact, you can get rich overnight. Give me 10 years becoming a real estate investor and working 10, 12-hour days, 6 days a week. At some point, one night, overnight, you're going to be wealthy and it will start to stack for you. Number 4, diversification. I like to talk about an investment strategy, and we are really fanatical about putting our money out, and I have lots of content where I talk about sending your money out to recruit more money. Money does what it's told. Money always finds a great deal, but investing in real estate is a way to build wealth and diversification inside of your investment portfolio. So let's say you started out and you bought a house and you flipped it, and then you moved on to become a landlord. You bought 3 houses, 2 of them you flipped, 1 of them you kept, and you've repeated that process, and now you're stepping into the next and you're buying this 5 to 12 units. You're doing it for the cash flow and for the appreciation, but also for diversification. It's something that's different. And I've recently been thinking about this in my life and the way that our career has gone. We're always doing something new. We're diversifying our portfolio. At this point, we have houses and multifamilies and hotels and mixed use buildings and commercial buildings. Guys like to have lots of different, we even have land. We just diversify our portfolio of real estate by doing different types of real estate investing. So this is something that you could add into your portfolio as well. So number 5, when you're investing in these products, or when you're investing in these 5 to 12 unit apartment buildings, you can leverage them, and you can leverage all real estate, right? Like, so real estate is a beautiful, beautiful investment asset in that you can pretty easily find someone else or a bank to come in and give you substantially, or most of, or maybe even in some cases, all of the money. And so you do that through leverage, right? And you can borrow money from the banks, and you can go to hard money lenders. And real estate, the point is you can leverage it. You can especially leverage something that cash flows really, really well. Banks love to lend money to people who have lots of cash flow. So the leverage that you can get on this type of asset is astronomical. It's a great way for you to be able to find the money to do the next deal, right? Have some success, get some cash flow, borrow money against it, be very safe about it. Don't over leverage your real estate. On the island of Puerto Rico, we have almost no debt. Now, there's reasons for that. 1, we're sort of averse to debt, but 2, it's hard to get on the island. So we have a whole bunch of pent up equity that one day there's going to be somebody who's going to bring this leverage to the island, and then we're going to be able to pull some of our equity out so that we can invest in more real estate. I think those are the pros and cons of apartment building investing. Telling you what we're doing. Guys, on this channel, you can count on that. I'm going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm going to show you the real estate projects that we're doing in real time. I'm going to show you the stuff of our friends, of our partners. We're going to sit down with people who are entrepreneurs. We're going to talk about real estate. We're going to talk about successes, and we're going to talk about the stuff that does work and doesn't work. They're just real life examples for us. This is what we do every day. We're value add real estate investors, and we're growing a community of people who are like-minded that want to do deals together. So if that sounds good to you, smash that subscribe button and that little thumbs up thing. It really helps the channel. If we can get more likes on the video, then YouTube will push it out to more people, and maybe we can do deals with more people. You'll grow the community, and maybe you can do deals with us or with other people in the community. Who knows what are the possibilities just by you hitting that little like button for us. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this content, guys. Watch this next. God bless.